my people. INEC chairman. This one too sweet. I may make you watch this video to the end. Why Yakubu Mahmood? Disgrace, yeah. He don't wear any chairman rapper. Hey, he can't taggle. Come wear kokoshu. Area halauna. Hey. When I welcome back again to Bod TV, but we will analyze trends of waiting they happen. Hey, area, I salute now. I know you finish. One love, man. One love. Una welcome straight away to get for now today. You know, pass all the begin to talk about the confession time. EU and the chief observer and Barry Andrew, he can come out and he can talk to what INEC do. They see him. They say from where they sit down for their office, they see everything where INEC do. You know, say all this, but we not they fear them. They look now, they shake their head. They see everything though. They say INEC not transparent. Right now, so they talk to you now. They say INEC. They say don't watch the video over and over and over and over again. All the promises we make. They say no one will fulfill. They say to them, this will not be election. Yeah, what don't gas for a chairman, oh. They say this old thing, me know your bless I they talk with my own words. May I read them and listen though. He say INEC was not transparent. He said they were operational failures which reduced the public trust of the process. Not be me talk. Now Barry Andrews na talk. He say INEC not dey transparent. So if INEC not dey transparent, which means say wetin bring Bola Tinubu enter transparent. My people, the thing not finish here. We not touchable. I tell them we go reach am. Hey, INEC tell me I don't hook am. This time I don't hook am for true. Not be only locally or internationally. The thing don't hook am bad. I been wanna watch this video to the end though, because the evidence why I pack cannot be here. Oh. The man because talk said the volume of cancellation. Say what they cancel. He say all the pulley unit there were too many cancellation. Then the consti talk say there were no factual data. Yeah. Oh, you both too strong. Go. He said there were no factual data of how the winner emerged. He say INEC set standard. INEC them set standard. Where them themselves they not fulfill. He says so for to demo, they not say yes, election they get flaws and other small things. Say, but this one was too obvious. He said the sand when you enter inside the eye, this one be just sand though. He says one a stone. He said a stone, then fall for eye. So he said this one was obvious. All right, moving to the next. Come see and say, hey, Buhari call confess through his spokesman. They call confess say. Say this first subsidy was a delay for Tinubu to win the election. More than a confession. Oh. Hey, God, though. Would I remember the way Tinubu just, on the very first day, the day where they just inaugurate him, in your subsidy is removed. Guys, you guys should connect the dot, though. So, look at Buhari delayed the first subsidy. For 8 years, for a whole 8 years, he couldn't do it. Then he can't talk so okay. The next government, which is Tinubu, go finally remove him. So on the day of the inauguration, no one just jump, come and say fuel subsidy is removed. Then later, I can't talk say he just stuck him, say it was not in his script. All right, guys, see, wait. I'm just trying to relate it with this story because the lies are so obvious. Okay, now going back a little bit backward now. Me not be like say you're the wrong, they go front. So before now, what happened? Now yes, they go France and from there can go London. But what thing you go do for France? Nigeria they talk to they don't know when I go take treatment or when I go meet a girlfriend or when I go meet a twin sister or maybe Bola Tinubu female, we don't know. So they say they don't know what thing in go do for France because there was nothing, come up with anything say like them do or where in go France for like can they talk about a country, can they talk about maybe how the international community fit help Nigeria. There was nothing like that. Hey. All right, my people. So there was no deal that was disclosed or discussed for the Nigerian economy. So that's aside, we can't go the next news where we say, man, with the year say subsidy na scam, but this is not a new thing. We don't for the year I'm saying a scam before, but with the year right now, say, man, even Tinubu is part of it, so there is no way they will fit to remove the fuel subsidy without not increasing other things like electricity, the tariff don't go up. So the old thing, we don't know where they go. That's just the truth. And that's what I've brought to you. We don't know where we they go. We don't know where we are going. But the fact remains that our mandates, they must give us our mandate. That our mandate, we will get them. As soon as I see that INEC chairman, everybody's against him. And we believe that the courts, which is the last hope of man, that the courts should do the rightful thing. If they don't do the rightful thing, I trust Nigeria, they go see drag their leg come out. And this one, I go be on a very long thing. And I remember Kenneth Okoko was also with Arise TV. Guys, now let's listen to that one man. Wait till he talk. In the give the fire. Back to back. Back to back. All right, guys, this is Bod TV Bod. I always say it. Where we analyze trends of what's happening, how we take the do how we don't take the do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
In the lead up to the 2023 general elections, Nigerian citizens demonstrated a clear commitment to the democratic process. That said, the election exposed enduring systemic weaknesses and therefore signal a need for further legal and operational reforms to enhance transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability. While we consider the electoral legal framework provides an adequate foundation for the conduct of democratic elections, there are ambiguities in the law. For example, the Electoral Act 2022, which had its first test in a general election in 2023, and other legal instruments evidenced gaps in terms of transparency, accountability, and inclusivity, and left room for uncertain implementation. For that reason, we recommend, and this is our first priority recommendation, to protect the interests of voters through certainty of law for all stages and aspects of electoral processes by eliminating from electoral law and regulations errors and ambiguities to avoid potential for confusing interpretations and ensuring the revision processes are inclusive. A positive aspect of the voter registration process was active youth engagement, with 2/3 of the 9.5 million new registrants being young people. However, there is a need for greater efforts to protect genuine youth participation in elections, and similarly, ongoing underrepresentation of marginalized groups in political life requires robust remedial action. Overall, the collection of permanent voter cards was adversely affected by poor institutional planning and a lack of transparency. To ensure the accuracy and inclusiveness of the voter register, an external independent audit would be beneficial. The campaign was competitive, with freedom of assembly largely respected, as evidenced by the nationwide conduct of rallies. However, challenges such as the naira, cash, and fuel scarcity and incidents of orchestrated violence were observed to hamper some campaign activities and to reduce attendance. In addition, the mission recorded cases of undue interference by governors, while the campaign was also marred by internal party conflicts. Personality-focused canvassing and misuses of incumbency by governors tilted the playing field, leading to increased polarization, driven by divisive rhetoric based on ethnicity and religion. Candidates' prospects to meaningfully campaign also were negatively impacted by a high level of disputes resulting from candidate registration. The mission noted well over 1,000 pre-election court cases, some negatively impacted or overlapped with the polls. Our mission recorded more than 100 campaign-related violent incidents, including, tragically, assassinations. These and other criminal acts obstructed the campaign, disrupted the elections, and suppressed voter participation. Weaknesses in the legal framework for these electoral offences and others, such as misuse of state resources, intimidation, and vote buying, contributed to inadequate enforcement. Key state institutions, including INEC, but also political parties, failed to tackle these problems. Coming to our second priority recommendation, we consider there is a pressing need to address impunity for electoral offences through robust, well-defined and effective interagency coordination governed by clear rules on non-partisanship, optimization of resources, delivery of effective investigation and sanctioning, and provision of regular public consolidated information on outcomes. INEC introduced some very positive measures early in the electoral process. For example, it increased the number of polling units and established a system of electronic accreditation of party agents, media and observers. Public confidence, however, in INEC was severely damaged on the 25th of February due to its operational failures and lack of transparency. While some corrective measures introduced before the 18th of March elections seemed to have a positive impact, overall trust was not restored and eventually led civil society to call for an independent audit of the entire process. However, there is no legal requirement for qualification and merit-based appointments of the positions of INEC Commissioner or Resident Electoral Commissioner. Prior to the elections, selection processes were questioned, leaving the institution vulnerable to mistrust. We believe that these vulnerabilities can be effectively addressed by, and this is our third priority recommendation, establishing a robust operational framework for the independence, integrity and efficiency of electoral administration through an inclusive and publicly accountable mechanism for selecting candidates to the posts of INEC commissioners and recs based on clear criteria of evaluation of merits, qualifications and verified non-partisanship. A number of key issues hindered freedom of expression and limited voters' access to diverse information. For example, analytical reporting was limited due to self-censorship by state-level outlets who feared retribution from governors. Fines were imposed by the broadcast media regulator without due process. We are also seriously concerned journalists face attacks and with little consequences for the perpetrators. Therefore, and our fourth priority recommendation, we consider it essential to afford adequate protection to freedom of expression by developing a comprehensive operational framework underpinned by the skills and means for ensuring prompt investigation and prosecution of all types of attacks against media practitioners. Positively, the media raised voters' awareness, fact-checkers stood up against disinformation, and media outlets extensively covered the campaign, providing equitable exposure to both the APC and PDP. Disappointingly, politicians avoided answering merit-based questions during interviews and instead engaged in party infighting. While social media was an important tool for information exchange, campaigning and mobilization, misinformation was massively spread. Additionally, we noted legal provisions such as the Cybercrime Act had the effect of encouraging self-censorship, and we therefore consider amendment of the legislation is needed to safeguard freedom of expression. Detailed operational frameworks to strengthen inclusion are needed. For example, we found that persons with disabilities could not always access polling units and assistive devices were rarely available. Data on registration and voting by internally displaced persons was not published. Women's political participation in Nigeria is not in line with the country's international commitments and provision of equality. The number of women participating in the process evidences a worrisome trend of decline since 2007. Only one woman contested among 18 presidential candidates, and there were no nominated female running mates. So while the 25th February elections were held on schedule, a lack of transparency and operational failures reduced trust in the process and challenged the right to vote. Voters assigned to new polling units had difficulties in identifying their correct polling unit, and the conditions in almost half of polling units observed did not ensure the secrecy of the vote. In 16 states, the mission noted incidents of violent attacks on polling units and indeed on INEC staff and harassment of voters. The counting procedures were negatively impacted by overall poor understanding, particularly in completing forms, and chaotic and overcrowded conditions in collation centres observed. Key issues impacting the orderly conduct of elections on March the 18th included interference by party agents and a lack of adequate protection of the secrecy of the vote. The elections were impacted by outbreaks of fighting and thuggery, which led to a high number of cancellations of polling units and, regrettably, also fatalities. The introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system, or BVAS, and the INEC results viewing portal IREV was widely seen as an important step to ensure the integrity and credibility of the elections, but lack of transparency before the polls, and notably the severely delayed display of presidential result forms on the 25th of February, for which INEC failed to give a timely and comprehensive explanation, dashed the public trust in election technologies and in INEC. For both elections, INEC did not publish key relevant information, hampering transparency throughout the collation processes and the declaration of election results. For example, INEC failed to publish the manner of calculation of the declared winners, turnouts, number of accredited voters, and the list of polling units where elections were cancelled, postponed, or not held. The absence of this information undermined the possibility for independent verification of the outcome and public trust. We consider it vital, and this is our final priority recommendation, to protect the free expression of the will of the voter and integrity of elections by establishing a robust, transparent, and easily verifiable results processing system with clear rules. These include uploading polling unit results from the polling unit only and in real time. At each level of collation, results forms to be uploaded in real time, and all forms to be published in an easily trackable and scrapable database format.
Culture in Nigeria vis-a-vis the Nigerian politician, what kind of mark will you give them? Are we improving or we are stagnant? Thank you.
If only it was as simple as giving a mark to all of the stakeholders and how it's running. It is, of course, I completely understand your motivation to ask the question, and we've engaged very much with INEC. Doors have been open to speak with us throughout the process from the very beginning, including yesterday. And I emphasize that we really hope that such criticisms are here, and they are robust criticisms, are taken in the spirit in which they're given. And the spirit in which they're given is one of constructive criticism towards a shared goal towards deepening Nigeria's democracy. We judge elections on the basis of international criteria around inclusivity, credibility, transparency, and accountability. And throughout the report, we draw on these central principles. And it is for the people of Nigeria to conclude, based on what we found, to make the mark, I would say. I think you have a general question about the direction of travel of Nigerian democracy. And I think I made this point before when we launched our preliminary statement. And, there is sort of democratic backsliding across the world. In Europe, we are facing severe rule of law challenges from individual member states. Former EU country, UK, they're having problems. It has to be said. The United States had an incredibly complex election, to put it mildly, in 2020. So, you know, this isn't unique to Nigeria, to West Africa, to Africa. It is an issue that, in my view, therefore underlines the need for further election monitoring. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a reciprocal process. It's of mutual benefit to both our democracies, and it deepens the relations more generally outside of the framework of elections. So I think that we as a mission don't compare one election to the next, because we were only here for the period of January to April. And I certainly wasn't here for the last election, so it would be outside of our normal procedure to try to compare. So I hope that answers your question as closely as I can. You know, there isn't a threshold where we say, well, I'm afraid this election has been so poor that we have no further interest in democratic governance or rule of law in Nigeria. And I think that would be a dangerous thing. And I've outlined my concerns generally that we are in a period of democratic recession across the world. Just 6% of people in the world live in free countries, according to the Democracy Index published by Freedom House. So the time for investing in election monitoring is even more profound and more urgent, in my opinion. In any case, the question of investing in democratic governance here in Nigeria is a matter for the EU delegation. And it's really important to remind you that this mission is separate from the delegation, which allows the delegation to be able to have their diplomatic relations with the government separate from the work that we carry out during the course of this mission. The process of the election itself is one component of the work that we carry out as a mission. We looked at all of the processes up to election day and subsequently. Election day itself, there were obvious shortcomings, and I've outlined them in the speech, and they're contained in the final report and feed into the recommendations. So, for example, I mentioned the fact that there was a lack of transparency around data in relation to the collection of PVCs. There should have been better distribution of sensitive materials and earlier distribution of sensitive materials. We should have had absolute real-time uploading of results, particularly the presidential results on the day of the election. And these shortcomings are laid out here. And it's not as if we are coming with any new standard. These are the standards that Nigeria has set for itself. So we bring these to light. It is for Nigerians themselves and all stakeholders in Nigeria to determine what their view is about their democratic institutions, about their political parties, about all the stakeholders that are taking part in elections here in Nigeria. We carry this out at your invitation, with your permission, and if you want to take that forward, we finish our work this Friday, and we hope that it has been some contribution to help the discussion and period of national reflection after the elections.
Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari said the removal of the fuel subsidy was delayed so his party, the All Progressive Congress, could win the 2023 presidential election. In a statement through his former spokesman, Garba Shehu, Buhari noted that President Bola Tinubu would have lost the election if the subsidy removal had been implemented long before the polls. Buhari, however, commended the new administration for removing the subsidy and attempts to unify Naira exchange rate. Shehu said the statement was in response to queries by some critics who have questioned why it took the new administration only weeks, something Buhari could not achieve in years. Labour Party spokesperson Kenneth Okonkwo joins us now to share his perspective on this development. Your response or your thoughts to what Shehu Garba just said regarding the fact that they kept this back because they wanted the current president to win the election. What's your thought about that?
Well, that explains the whole thing about the philosophy behind the party APC. The only thing they think about is the next election, not the next generation. That a man came to power proclaiming subsidy as fraudulent and still sustain the fraud for 8 years just because he doesn't want to lose an election tells you the whole failure that has become APC. As a matter of fact, the present leader, whom he purportedly put in office, said the financial system under his regime was rotten. Don't take my words for it. Take the words of the person he said he installed. Now, what I am saying is that if he had been a statesman, what he would have been thinking about is the next generation. Let me tell you, this same president went to National Assembly and promulgated a law called PIA. And in this law, he said they were going to remove oil subsidy 18 months before the end of his tenure. And cowardly, because they are scared of doing the right thing, he still went back to the National Assembly that has been described as rubber stamp to amend the same law to shift the commencement date to June after he had left office. Let me say it clearly, that the oil subsidy, even as presently constituted, is still a fraud. And I give you my reason. You said you have removed oil subsidy. There was no time in history that they told us that they were paying 215 naira to subsidize oil per liter. So even if, assuming without conceding, that they even say they are paying 250 naira, 250 naira plus 185 gives you about 435. So you mean you are making profit of more than 100 naira to punish a people that have been so traumatized, because the fuel price now is 537. So this APC, in addition to thinking about only election, cannot and do not have what it takes to think about the next generation. And let me put it clear. The former president said they won an election. I respectfully want to say, Mr. President, you were simply implementing the official position of your party before you left office, which is grab power at all costs, snatch it at all costs, fight for it at all costs, and run away with it. They simply ran away with the power that they did not win. And I don't take my words for it. Take the words of one Abdullahi Bangura, the chairman, Sierra Leone Political Parties Regulatory Commission. He said before the election, everybody that was anything in Nigeria supported a P2B. But when the election came differently, P2B called for calm and saved his country from chaos and chose the legal option. Nigeria is the only country where somebody that was supported by everybody that is anything in a country will be declared that he lost. But thank God he's a statesman. He was thinking about the next generation, and he called for calm, remembering that no politician's ambition is worth the blood of a Nigerian citizen. Let those that want to grab it at all costs continue. They will have an expiry date, but I tell you that the election is won by somebody that even the international community knows that he won, and even every Nigerian knows that he won. So subsidy is still a scam, and the last president that ran a rotten financial system does not have what it takes to tell us who won the election. At the appropriate time, the world will say who won the election.
Amazing. Let's begin what's trending, with reactions trailing comments made by a former governor of Bauchi State, Isa Uganda, who during a live television interview stated that fuel subsidy has mostly been a scam run by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company in conjunction with marketers and other stakeholders in the oil sector. Uganda, who was also a former Minister of State for Transport, further stated that he was privileged to serve as the chairman of a subcommittee between 2008 and 2009 during the economic meltdown period, and he chaired the Committee on Subsidy, where everything about the scam was discovered. Well, Bayo Ononuga, the director of media for the Tinubu Shetima campaign, posted a snippet of the interview on Twitter, stating that anyone shouting for the retention of subsidy is connected with the scammers. Well, let's take a look.
I was privileged to serve as the chairman of the subcommittee 2008 and 2009 under the economic meltdown. I was one of the members, 3 of us governors and some other members with Mr. President as chairman. So I chaired the committee on subsidy, and everything about the subsidy regime and then the scam in the subsidy regime was discovered by my committee. And of course, since then, recommendations were made, which unfortunately were never implemented. And it's very sad. I'm sad to let Nigerians know that from what I saw, we came across situations where subsidy was claimed on pipelines that never existed. You just claim that I would have pumped X amount of, either finished products or crude, maybe from Kaduna, from Warri to Kaduna.
Who, by NNPC? Making this claim?
Of course, who else is doing it?
Oh dear.
Those that pump and those that are in the subsidy scam, they just fill papers, invoices, and they claim subsidy on it. In fact, there was an instance of a pipeline that was supposed to exist between Lagos and Warri. And tons of monies were collected on subsidy on a pipeline that never existed. This is Nigeria for you.
Well, all right. I mean, I got that snippet from Bayo Ononuga, who is also very vocal on Twitter. I mean, can I call him a Twitter analyst like Dr. Abatis always condemning Twitter analyst? I mean, what can I say? But yes, it was good that he posted that. And, I thought it was...
Analyst.
No. I mean, people post their opinions on Twitter, and it is important for us to share. And I think that what he said is actually right. If this is actually true, what Bayo Ononuga said is if, people that are screaming about the subsidy retention are part of the scheme. But I believe that this is a huge story that should be investigated. What caught my attention, I mean, he made those comments on Channels Television. What caught my attention was the fact that he said that there was an oil marketer that is his friend, who is part of the team, who's also a part of the economic team, that met a previous president and told him that, listen, we are tired of making money. This whole thing is a huge scam. I mean, what is this? This is all a cahoot or something? But before I come to you, Ayo, in the meantime, Garba Shehu, a former spokesperson for ex-President Muhammadu Buhari, in a Twitter post on Monday, stated that Buhari did not remove petrol subsidy before he left office to prevent any form of insurrection that could have made the All Progressives Congress lose the 2023 election. The former presidential spokesperson further admitted that although Buhari did not remove petrol subsidy during his 8-year tenure in office, all other subsidies which were in place before he was elected in 2015, including the annual fertilizer subsidy that cost 60 to 100 billion naira each year, the pilgrim diesel and electricity subsidies were all eliminated by May 2023. I mean, this is all self-indicting to me.
Yeah,
Ayo.
Absolutely. I mean, we've highlighted that, but let me go back to Mr. Issa Yuguda's statement. And it just goes to show again and again that only a few people in Nigeria are siphoning our financial resources at the detriment of the masses. The people who, he's not the first person, or he's not stating anything that's new to people in terms of the fact that subsidies is scam. So what he's mentioned is that the NNPC, colluding with some oil marketers, just have phantom sale of oil and claim subsidy and bleed the nation whilst the poor masses are suffering. And that's why a number of times people used to say that subsidy was for the rich. It was just for the rich. There were a few people who were benefiting massively from it, and that had to be cut to stop the siphoning of resources from the government. But beyond that I'd like to also mention that this scam was done under the previous administration as well, which was an APC government.
Yes.
Why wasn't this investigation done at the time? Why did you take, and it leads to the next story with Malangaba Shehu saying that the president, due to political reasons, rather would allow this scam to continue to benefit his party so that they wouldn't jeopardize their chances at the polls. It goes to show where really the heart of our politicians are and the will or political will comes from. As long as it's of interest, it would continue. When it no longer becomes an interest, so where do the people come into? Where do the people come into the play? At what point would we have leaders who are thinking of the people as opposed to their personal interest and political advancement? It is sad, and I hope, as has been said, it is investigated, at least hopefully under this administration, the president will have the courage to do so.
Yes, and you know, Rufai, one of the anchors asked the question there. If you're saying that, the president knew about this whole subsidy scam, why didn't he remove it? And Ugunda alluded to the fact that the president may have been scared for his life. Rufai.
Yes,
I mean,
see, Oji, there's nothing you would have said that a lot of people do not know in this country. And that's why I said before President Tinubu removes subsidy, at first you prepare the ground through palliatives, and two, you have a forensic audit of the NNPC and what went on. Like I was a soothsayer, I know they will never do that because of the level of scam that goes on. And Oji, it is not today people have been living at the expense of Nigeria. It goes back to when Nigeria got independence, where top government functionaries were fleecing this country dry. In fact, Oji, it's a miracle this country is still alive, it's still succeeding. And God, we thank you for Nigeria. Because the way people have eaten this country dry, the cankerworms and palmer worms, all sorts of corruption. And guess what they do? They make humongous wealth. They just fritter some of the wealth to their foot soldiers that you see on social media defending the madness going on. And they also fritter some to the media, people that will talk and speak for them, while they keep making money. Imagine somebody saying that, I'm tired of making money.
yes.
And that's what it is. We all know it's a scam. The first regime was a scam. You remember the first regime when they said marketers should bring it in? Marketers were bringing empty barrels in and they were collecting money. But let me tell you something. The next phase of the scam will start soon. When you have to get a lot of people to still bring in products in themselves, and the NNPC is not bringing products in, and they fix the price. That's going to be the next phase of the scam. You know, because why? These people that are at the top, they never care for the lower rung in society. And there is no government to defend them. You know why? Because government becomes for the rich, and the rich are their cronies. I dare them to have a forensic audit of the NNPC.
Absolutely.
I dare them to have a forensic audit that goes way back to 77, since the NNPC started.
Yes.
They will not.
Absolutely.
You know why? Because we know what has gone under the carpet. But you see, in all of this, I keep telling Nigerian people, elections matter. You can see all of this yourself and be hoodwinked by the people they pay to come and lie to you on social media.
Surely.
And you can see all of this and take action. Your destiny in your hand. The best I can do is to tell you and open your eyes to it. Like you take your future in your hands,
Absolutely.
these people will continue to do you over. And guess what, Oji? They are already recruiting their children. These same children of the oppressors will rule over you if care is not taken.
I mean, surely this needs to be investigated. Even his friend, Ugunda's friend. I mean, they need to find out who. All these people need to be arrested.
Oji, nothing will be done after this interview.
Dr.
Forget
What has
it.
been confirmed? What has been confirmed by, former Governor Issa Yuguda's statement is that, look, we live in a country, whether it's fuel subsidy or other forms of subsidy, where we're surrounded by scam. What has been confirmed is the fact that there is a class, a parasitic class in this society, a rent collection class. People who do nothing, who just collect rent from the Nigerian state.
Unacceptable.
Whether it's in the oil and gas sector, or it's in the maritime sector, or in any other sector in Nigeria. Rent collectors. And that is why his friend that he talked about can say, look, we are making too much money because they don't do anything.
Yes.
And I do parasitic class. Issa Yuguda, as he pointed out, was chair of a committee to investigate the subsidy scam in 2009. In 2009. In 2011, the House of Representatives set up a committee to investigate this fuel subsidy scam and came up with the same conclusion as the Issa Yuguda panel of 2009. In 2012, the Jonathan administration set up the Aigimokwede panel on subsidy verification. And that panel indicted 21 companies and raised an alarm that people were collecting per annum money is running into about 327 billion naira. People who have no fuel station claiming that they have fuel station. People who do not import any fuel claiming that they are importing fuel. The good news is that under the present administration, the Tinubu administration, the fuel subsidy has been removed. So nobody is going to collect any free money again from that direction. 2, the Petroleum Equalization Fund is also going to disappear. So that's another center of scam in all of this. But a bigger point made by former Minister of Aviation, former Governor Issa Yuguda, is that there's no time limit on investigation of the persons who have been identified and indicted. But I hope that President Tinubu will summon the courage to initiate further investigation and trial, because if all the people who collected rent from Nigeria, from phantom fuel subsidy, if they are made to return the money, that could be a lot. That money could be used to develop some of our institutions, particularly schools. Because the whole idea of people collecting rent, there are people who are collecting rent at the ports.
Unacceptable.
There are people who have private accounts into which they put government money.
Yes.
So, this is part of the challenge as President Tinubu tries to tackle corruption, which is one of the things he has been advised to do. So Issa Yuguda's recommendation is in order, clearly, because we have too many rent collectors in this country. You wake up very early, we wake up every morning to put in a day's work. Some people just lounge around, they just collect rent for doing absolutely nothing.
The Bod TV board. In case the first time you come here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more uploads.